Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Speak podcast. Recently, we did an episode where we were ranking the two color pairs in association with our personal preference, and we thought we'd expand the conversation a little bit. This time, we're going up quite a bit to four colors, and we're not really ranking the four color pairs, but we're going to just have a general conversation about four color commander decks. Like, why would you build a four color? Why jump from three? Why go to five? Why is four an interesting building decision? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Joining me today, we have Preston. Preston, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How are you?
I'm good. And Jason, how are you doing? Your team won, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty wonderful. Go
Go
blue,
blue.
baby.
And I am your host, Morgan. And yeah, if you guys would like to support the show, you can support us on Patreon. And if you can't support the show financially, you can also just hit subscribe if you haven't already, share us with a friend, or even just help us with the crappy YouTube ad revenue stuff and just go back and check out some videos you maybe haven't seen yet that look interesting. We've been doing this for a bit now and have quite a bit of content and a bit of a diversity in what we're doing as well. So hopefully you'll be able to find something of interest. um, Also, starting with this episode, I think we are going weekly. So not today, but starting next episode, we will be bringing the news section back. So if you are tired of going onto the Magic News websites and getting your news that way, well, now you can just come to us here at Geek and Seek, and we'll fill you in on whatever drama you might have missed. Also, I think next week we're going to be starting to get more spoilers for the next standard set, so we might spend a little bit of time talking about that as well. Let's jump into the conversation of four color commander decks. So, why would you build a four color commander deck? Because one of the things I've heard a lot of people say is that they play too similarly or end up being similarly built to just five color decks, right? The missing the one color doesn't change too much. I think the one argument is if you're like playing like a greenless four color deck, then obviously your mana situation has to be thought out quite differently. But outside of that, your construction of a four color deck versus a five color deck is going to be very similar, except it's some kind of weaker because your mana base doesn't have like cards like the World Tree to prop it up, and they just kind of turn into good stuff piles, right? So why make the decision between four color deck and a five color deck?
Well, I think the main reason people feel that way is most of your options for four color are the partner commanders who are very just do whatever those colors want to do good stuff. But when you look at the actual dedicated four color commanders, they do typically focus up a lot more than their partner companions, you know? So I think if you have more options for actual four color commanders, we'd be able to more openly see like how unique they can be compared to five color, in my opinion.
I don't have any four color decks. I've never built a four color commander. It'd be nice. I don't like all the options that exist. Personally, I see a lot of them. Like if somebody has a four color deck, it's usually like a Yidris deck, or it's like Kydel and Timna, or Timna and Thrasios, or Vile Smasher and Thrasios. It's always just like the same. It adds a little bit of extra diversity into Commander. Um, you getting two different abilities on two separate cards from the command zone to build a deck around, and whether you build it so that those two synergize really well, or you build it so that if you get one out and it gets destroyed, you can get the other one out without paying commander tax, and now your deck does something different or similar. I just it's definitely unique, but as it sits right now, it just feels very limited.
Yeah.
Like look at the two Atraxas. Those are so different from any other three color or five color options out there. You might not like either of the attractors, but you can't deny how different they feel than basically anything else you can play.
So Jason mentioned that he doesn't currently have or has ever had a four color commander deck. Preston, do you have any four color decks? Just so the people know, or have you ever?
I think I've built them online a couple times. Like testing out, seeing if I like them, but I don't think I've ever actually like bought all the cards for a 4-color deck.
Yeah, so I have a decent amount of experience. I've had two Atraxos Praetor Voices decks in the past. The one I have currently is an energy counter deck because, you gotta try building Atraxa Fair, otherwise it's violence. I have a Yidris deck, which is a chaos deck, which I played on I think the 4th of July episode. And then I've had two Brea decks. I used to have a Thopter Tribal Brea deck, which I played on the $50 budget episode, which was a mistake, by the way. Don't build don't build four color decks on a budget, especially if you don't have green. That was a mistake. Don't do that. And then my CEDH deck is also Brea. And then the other one I have is coming up in a couple episodes of the show. We're doing an episode where everyone's playing a companion, and I have a 4-color companion deck. I'm playing Bruce Tarl and Ikra Shadiki. So it's 4-color, no blue. So I have quite a bit of experience with 4-color decks. And I think that even just based on what we're saying so far, and I think Preston really hit it on the head right off the bat, was that the partner pairs kind of just feel good stuffy, right? If you just take two random partner pairs, if you take Bruce Tarl and Thrasios or something, you're just playing the good cards, right? They don't point you that far in any one direction, but you definitely can, like the specific commander precon one, so Yidris, Brea, they do point you in a specific direction, which I wish I had time to go look up the exact quote, but Gavin Verhey on his Good Morning Magic YouTube channel has a podcast series where he goes over all of the years of precons. And for the 2016 commander precons, which is where we get these 4-color commanders, the design philosophy wasn't to focus on what does it mean for the color identity to have these 4 colors. They were saying focus on what is missing, right? So Brea doesn't have green, right? So we're just going to do stuff that green doesn't do, as an example. And that was their design philosophy, because I mean, if you have 4 colors and you're just trying to do the identity thing on what those colors do, you're kind of doing a little bit of everything. So that was like how they separated it from 5-color decks, was they're just like, let's focus on what this color does not do. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's like, if we're going to make more 4-color commanders, that's how we have to do it? Or do you think we could lean more into what the individual colors do?
I mean, I think that you could definitely build it either way. We've seen Wizards of the Coast design such interesting cards over the past couple of years, and cards that do things that, are either really, really boring and don't do a whole lot, or really intriguing, interesting, maybe confusing sometimes. Shout out Wheel of Misfortune. We've seen that Wizards has the ability to design a variety of different cards with different abilities. So I don't think that they have to. I don't think that if they make new 4-color commanders or different 2-color commanders that have partnered for a variation of 4-color pairings, I don't think that they need to focus necessarily on what the colors don't do. That I don't like the idea of stepping away from the color pie. That's one of my favorite parts about Magic is you can always expect a color to do a certain thing in a certain way. Black has card draw in its own way. Mana ramp in its own way. White has, its own way of getting lands out and all these different things. So I don't necessarily think that you need to do that if you're going to design more cards or new cards. But you could. I mean, Wizards has the ability to take it in any different direction. I would like to see more sticking with the color pie. That's just personal preference, though.
I think you could do basically whatever you want as a designer at this point, because we have gotten so many different weird, wacky things. Like, nothing is fully off the table at this point. And I feel like 4-color is a good spot for them to try some weird stuff that they maybe don't think they can get away with on 2 to 3-color creatures.
So I think this is kind of a convoluted card, but a card that I think kind of leans into more of what Jason's point was, is it's either the newest or one of the newest 4-color. This is Aragorn the Unifier, which is for one of each color except for black. So 4 mana, 5/5 human noble. Whenever you cast a white spell, you do a thing. Whenever you cast a blue spell, you do a thing. Whenever you cast a red spell, you do a thing. And the reason, whenever you cast a green spell, you do a thing. So what's I like about that one is it gives you open-endedness, right? Like you could go all in on one of those colors. You could go in on multicolor spells. You could try balancing it out so you're getting a little bit of all of them. So I like that design space. I like the open-endedness. And like, we were talking about like, to go back to Atraxa, Atraxa Praetor's Voice is like it's I think the most built around commander according to EDH Rec. And I think because of it's part of that's because it's so open-ended, right? Just proliferate at your end step opens up a lot of possibilities. Like I said, I have an energy counter deck. You could do planeswalkers, you can do +1/+1 counters, you could do experience counters, you can do infect, there's our favorite. There's so many ways to build it. So do you think that that's where we should be focusing our design for these 4 and 5 color commanders, is the open-endedness, or do you think it's more fun to push it in one specific direction? Because it varies some, obviously, but I think a lot of newer commanders are hyper focused on like it just does the one thing, which is great, right? For instance, I bring up Tovolar a lot because to me it's like the most blatant, like obviously it's a good commander, but it's kind of a boring commander. Like Tovolar is like play your werewolves, they smack, you draw more cards, you can play more werewolves, right? So that's like the one time that it really works out. But do you guys like the hyper specific design, or do you like the more open-endedness that we see from a lot of the 4-color commanders?
Well, this kind of goes back to what I was talking about. Once it's 4 colors, that's 4 different pieces of the color pie that you're putting on one card. So naturally, it would make more sense to keep it kind of open-ended. That way you could build it in any one direction or another, depending on, if you wanted to go heavy on one color versus the other 3 colors. Just having those different options based on what's available to you, and sticking with the color pie, that it makes more sense to have those cards be open-ended. That way you have a variety of ways to build a deck around it.
I do think most of them should be open-ended, but I also think it's fine to have more specific ones. Like if you look at the 4-color Omnath, he is a landfall specific commander. He is a green commander that does a little bit of red, a little bit of white, and a little bit of blue. And I really like that 4-color Omnath. So while I do think the open-endedness of the 4-color should be the main focus, it's also fine to have a few of the more specific ones.
Part of the issue as well for if you're wanting to consider building a 4-color commander deck is that you're pretty limited on your options. We've already named most of them on this video. So for 4-color commanders, not counting the partner pair options, there's only, we believe, 8. There are 3 that are blackless, 2 that are redless, and then 1 for the other 3 options. I think that when I put those numbers together, I wasn't counting the 14th Doctor. The 14th Doctor is he's blacklist as well, so he should be on that list. I don't know why that's the color combination that keeps getting like the 4-color love, but that one, and that one's also, if you wanted to build 5-color Doctor Who, that's the one you use because you just use one of the black Doctor Companion cards. But we won't spend much time talking about that. But if you go into partner pairs, you have a lot more options. Jason and I were double checking our math here. We believe that if you're not counting the Doctor Who stuff, if you're not counting the Friends Forever, which is too narrow, if you're not counting the, are there any 4-color options if you're doing the background? I don't think so, because all the backgrounds are just, right? All the backgrounds are just one color.
I think all of the backgrounds are one color and all the creature are one color, I think.
Okay. So not counting Friends Forever or Doctor Who, we believe there are 36 different color combinations. If you for doing 4-color, if you want to use partners. This raises a little bit of two options, and maybe we need to take two problems I think we need to maybe dissect individually. But the two things that I notice are, one, that's still not a ton of options. And then two, like we were saying, if you go the partner route, it's really easy to just start putting together a 4-color good stuff pile, and it's hard to keep focus. And I have found that that's pretty true if you're doing 4-color, because if you're doing like 2 or 3-color partner pairs, I feel like you can still find a focus. I have I think 3 partner decks, maybe 4 partner decks right now, and they feel pretty focused, except for the 4-color one. The 4-color one is the one that's like, this is just kind of a good stuff pile. What do you guys think of those two things? Do you think that we still need more options? Do you think that, if we just get a few more here and there, it's fine, but as is, it's not that bad right now? Do you think that there's a way around the problem of partner pairs? Like, is the problem not the partners, but just people's philosophy with building the partner pairs? What do you guys think about that stuff?
I would like them to start printing more 4-color options. I've been actually wanting them to do that for a while. So I'm glad we have been getting a couple this past year or two. But yeah, I definitely think we could get a lot more of them in different set. They're kind of hard to do in a main set, I feel like. I think the reason we see them specifically do the blacklist so often is that one's really easy to make cards for, because it's just someone who's not evil. Like, that's what you want to do if you want to blacklist one. The other 4 are a lot harder to justify doing, but with how many side sets they're releasing nowadays, I feel like we could definitely get a lot more.
So we said that there's 36. We think. All right, we're not mathematicians, so don't hold us too accountable to the numbers. It's not much more than that or much less than that if it is not 36. It's pretty close. But you might be thinking 36, that's a decent number of options. That'd be 36 different decks. Right? And yeah, that's for 15 cards. There are 58 or 59 cards in the game that say partner. Only 15 of them are 2 colors. So you're only getting 36 different options for 4-color combinations with commanders from 15 cards. You're excluding 43 complete other cards that are monocolor. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you really see it's not a lot of options. The options that we have, everybody has seen like the big ones, the ones that a lot of people will play, the ones that are really strong. You don't get a whole lot of variation in decks. Like, Morgan, your energy counter Atraxa deck, that is the most variation I've ever seen with an Atraxa. It's either +1/+1 counters, planeswalkers, or infect. One of those 3 every single time. Anything with Thrasios as one of the partners, it's Thrasios. You know exactly what it wants to do. It just gets old seeing the same things get recycled over and over and over again, and not having new avenues to take in deck building, especially with all the cool new cards that we've gotten from the different sets over the years. I mean, you can add those cards to these decks, and now the decks do a little bit of different stuff, but you don't really have new 4-color commanders or even different 2-color partner commanders that you could make a 4-color commander deck that are going to play different than how the standard ones that we've seen have played in the past.
Yeah, because with the 2-color partner commanders, they're a lot more generic than the newer ones they've been printing at the 1-color.
Yep.
So if we got some more 2-color partners that were more specific and good doing one thing, I think that would alleviate a lot of the problems people have with it.
I think that's true, because I don't think I don't know. I think we could argue that maybe partners were kind of a mistake, at least the open-endedness ones, right? Because then you just kind of turn them into good stuff piles. But like Preston was saying, the like 1-color partner options, pretty neat, and they are more specific. I could see a world where we could make 2-color partner pairs that are hyper specific. Like maybe you do a blue green one that's big mana, right? But then you could do a put it with a, oh well, I guess maybe this example doesn't work. But then you put it with like a white red one that cares about artifact tokens, right? So then if you had those two as a partner pair, you care about like big spells that make artifact tokens. Like there's interesting things somewhere in the design space for making more specific routes to go with partner pairs that are more than one color that I think I don't know what that would look like. I don't know how you would balance that, but I feel like there's a way to make it work and give us more options. But then like, if all of those four the 2-color partner options are hyper specific, well now you take 2 hyper specific ones and you put them together. Now you have to balance your deck that way. So it's an interesting deck building restriction, but also opens up a lot of cool opportunities. So I feel like that there's some space to work there. I feel like that could be really cool. And I don't know if that's like the best way to go about making new 4-color commander options, but I feel like that's at least one of them. And going back to something Preston said a while ago, which is the reason we have so many blacklist commanders is because you just, you do a 4-color commander of someone who's not a bad guy. But to me, that feels lazy because, in like old school Magic, it was that like the black mages were the bad guys, but it's less, pun intended, it's less black and white now, like it's less clear. Like having black in your color identity doesn't make you the villain per se. Liliana's a great example. She's kind of the anti-hero, right? She's the Deadpool, whatever. But she's she's not a villain per se. And then we have people like Heliod, who's a mono white character and is the worst. So I feel like that's just maybe not lazy design. I'm sure the people who are making these cards are, doing their best and trying to keep it thematical, but I feel like that's lazy design space. So if you go on EDH Rec and you're looking at the 4-color combination tabs on EDH Rec, the color combinations are called specific names. We have Witchmaw, there's Ink Treader, there's Dune Brute. And if you're wondering where those names come from, it's from the Nephilim card. So do you guys think that the Nephilim should be commanders? I think the one example of like maybe this shouldn't be a commander is Ink Treader Nephilim. Ink Treader Nephilim is for one of each color except for black. It's a 3/3 that says whenever a player casts an instant or a sorcery spell, if it's the only target of the spell, you copy it for each other creature that could be targeted. And then you can each copy can target a different one of those creatures. That one's kind of bonkers, but all the other ones are really sweet. And a lot of people will rule 0 Nephilim deck so that they can have a cool 4-color commander that, otherwise wouldn't be an option. Like my favorite is Dune Brood Nephilim, which is one of every color except for blue, that says whenever it deals damage to a player, you create a sand token for each, a 1/1 for each lane you control. These are really cool cards to build around that people will sometimes just put in the 99 of decks. And then, like I said, we'll rule 0 them as commanders. Do you think that these are too good to be commanders? Do you think that there's an argument that like maybe we could, errata them to be legendary? Or what do you guys think about maybe doing that? Because it's something the community's already kind of doing.
I'll say this about Ink Treader Nephilim. It would be fine as a legendary creature. It would be fine. We have seen busted commanders like that. There's no reason that is any better than Orvar.
Orvar's kind of bonkers.
There's no reason that this is better than that card. And you get
Zada.
3
It
more
kind of plays
colors.
like Zada as well.
It's like, I've thought about that I mean, it hasn't, it's not something that I think about consistently, but I've thought about that before. It's like, why aren't any of these legendary creatures? This would be a perfect card to run as a commander. It would just be great. I think the one that you're talking about, pretty sure Jimmy played that on an episode of Game Nights.
They played, yeah, that's an old episode
They
of
played
Game
it
Nights. I
in the
believe
cube. They
it
played
was
the
a cube.
cube.
It was a cube, and they rule zeroed in as a commander. Yeah,
And that was so cool. And I never understood why those have never been printed as legendary creatures, because they see the abilities that they have for the most part seem like something a legendary creature should have on it.
they are
And I mean,
legendary effects. Yeah,
you look at these cards and you're like, this thing on this card looks sick. Looks absolutely terrifying. Like, why isn't this a legendary creature? And then you get like, Chatterfang, who's a squirrel. Nothing against Chatterfang.
but he's kind of bonkers
But
for what
you
it did.
see you see what I mean though? Like, it's a little
Yeah.
squirrel. This is a legendary creature, and then you have this. What even are they?
Nephilim.
What? But like, what is that?
Well, are we going to talk like actual mythology, or are we talking magic? Because in magic, I have no idea.
I mean, I didn't even know that was something from mythology. Educate me.
in most, it's extra biblical, but there's examples of it in a lot of other religions. Nephilim are the beasts that are born from angels reproducing with humans.
Well, there you go. That
That's
sounds pretty
awesome.
legendary to me.
Yeah, it sounds
Doesn't that sound
legendary. Don't
legendary to
there
you?
can't be that many of those.
Dude, that's like my father was an angel. Oh my gosh, that's a badass backstory.
in the book of Enoch, which is not technically part of the Bible, but that's the reason that God sends the flood is because there's too many Nephilim.
Yo, the angels
Which
got
is
around,
awesome.
dude. Man, these angels, they were loose. Easy breezy.
Yeah. But yeah, if you look at the art for Magic, I don't know what those are supposed to be, other than that the name Nephilim was cool to them, so they were like, well, we're gonna use that.
I'm not gonna get over it. The squirrel is more legendary than these things.
Yeah, that seems weird. I agree.
In a world of Eminence, Commander Ninjutsu, almost every single 5-color commander, these are fine. You can do broken stuff with them, but you can do broken stuff with every legendary creature that's ever been printed. These would absolutely be fine to be erratas as legendary.
I really want to build Dude and Brood. It's so cool. The main last thing I wanted to ask you guys about is what design space exists for there to be more 4-color commanders? Because we talked about like you could do more 2-color partner pairs, right? And just try to make them a little bit more specific so that they're not like the Thrasioses of the world and stuff like that. But what design space would you like to see maybe outside of that?
I mean, when I was thinking about this episode earlier, I just came up with the 4-color commander idea in my head.
What's that?
Okay, so it would be no white. For the green and the blue, I'd have an effect where, like, whenever a land comes into the battlefield, you draw a card and lose 1 life. And with that 1 life, you would use its second ability, which is whenever you lose life, your opponents lose that much life. So you could focus on the landfall, you could focus on dealing damage to yourself, you could do both. That's like an idea I came up with in like 30 seconds before we started the podcast.
That's such a Preston commander too. Like I'm gonna be dirtling with my lands, but I'm also pinging the table. That sounds pretty Preston.
It would be awesome.
It would be awesome.
There are ways that you can incorporate what certain colors do really well with what other colors maybe don't do as well. Like, I mean, green white's biggest strength, at least in my experience, has always been green being able to produce or generate as much mana as possible, and then white being able to take advantage of that mana in ways of balancing out the board state, and not taking too much of an advantage over your opponents while being able to, come in last second and get enough power to take out the win. And then, you have like red, which is very aggressive, wants to do a lot of damage to things, and black, where doesn't really care if you have to make some sacrifices in order to get the win. That's why those colors have always kind of been good as a pair. But you could take those ideas and combine them onto one card. And, you know, like Preston was saying with what he came up with, having lands do something causes this to happen, which is related to this color, and that can cause this to happen, which is related to that color. There's ways that you can design it so all 4 colors will synergize with each other. It's not easy, and nobody's asking for 100 different brand new 4-color commander combinations, but it just doesn't seem like that a lot of thought or consideration at all has been put into that design area of the game. Let me give this example. My biggest problem with Thrasios is that it's just a strong Simic card. Like,
And we already have a bunch of those.
It's a strong Simic card. Why not make it like more Merfolk based or something like that? Or like something to do with Island Walk. I wish Island Walk was something we saw a lot more. That's honestly one of the only fair ways to balance out. Oh, that was one of the best ways to balance out blue before, you know, black, green, and white really started to take off. They're just things that you can do that you can add onto cards that make them more unique and more focused. And instead of just making it a wide range, this is just a good card in these colors. The fact that your commander doesn't mean anything more to your command zone than this is probably the best card in my whole deck and it's in my command zone, that's just boring. And it's not as fun, especially when you sit down at a table and you see somebody pull out that Vile Smasher and Thrasios deck. You're just like, I'm just gonna get beat in the face, and they're gonna have every single card in their library in their hand, and they're gonna be able to play everything. So I think that there are better ways to design these cards. And Wizards definitely has people that can make the 4 colors synergize well with each other, and we can get some unique card designs.
Yeah, I think the partner pairs is probably like, if more of these come out, that's probably the way they would do it. Like, just have more hyper specific partner pairs so that your deck's either going to end up really weird or it's going to just focus on one specific thing, and not just like the generic good stuff, which would be fine. But I feel like Universes Beyond is also a decent place to experiment with this. Like, we didn't spend too much time, but one of the there are Friends Forever partner pairs that you can build that are 4-color. I think there's one that's 5-color that you can do, because the 11 or whatever is Grixis, and then you can just add one of the other ones. And then there is a single of the fourth, if you use the 14th Doctor from Doctor Who, and then add well, that's 4-color by itself, and then you just, there's 4-color builds you can do around that. Oh, and Aragorn, we already talked about Aragorn. I feel like that's where a lot of this is going to come from, and I think it is going to be, I know it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of lazy that a lot of it's just going to be the blacklist and just make like the main protagonist or whatever just blacklist, I feel like that's kind of lazy, but I feel like that's, the more options, the better. I think it would be interesting to see more cards like Aragorn the Unifier, because you can just, it as convoluted as that card is, it's a lot of text. It's open-ended in a way that there's multiple ways you could build it, but it also is just a blatant piggyback off of all of those colors. So, the blue ability is scrying, the green is pumping, the red is dealing direct damage. We could do more commanders that are like that. I think that would get old really fast, but at least doing a couple more commanders like that is an option. Maybe we do one has black in it, though. I feel like that would be interesting. Like, maybe it's like, whenever you cast a black spell, deal 2 damage to each person, you gain a life or something like that. The only other example I thought of is when we did the custom commander episode a few episodes ago on Upkeep. I built a Abzan Blink deck. And it was basically just Rune, except I took blue out and I added black. And there was a part of me that almost just went 4-color with that deck. Because there's a reason Rune is a popular commander. It's because blue has a lot of really cool flicker enablers and stuff like that. But yeah, I wanted to play a lot of those black cards. So there is a world where we could have versions of cards that, maybe they're just slight alterations of popular themes. But we're just opening up what cards you can build in that. So like, maybe you have to rebalance it quite a bit, but why can't there be a 4-color blink commander? Like, we probably could experiment with that.
How do you guys feel about something like this? What if there was a commander where it had some sort of mechanic on it where at the beginning, like before the game started, you declared a color to add to your commander's color identity, and that is its color for the whole game.
Well, I mean, we have the Prismatic Piper, which kind of already does that.
But I mean, it's like it, or instead of being colorless and then you naming what color it is, like it has like black, red, blue, and you choose white or green, and that is your fourth color for that game.
well, with how much they keep changing what can or can't be in the command zone, don't you think it's only a matter of time before something like that happens?
That's kind of what I was thinking. I mean, now you can have instants and sorceries in the command zone. Why not just choose your color?
Yeah. I mean, we have background, we have partners, we have alterations of partner, we have there's so much stuff that you can
companion cards that exist outside the game.
Yeah, I feel like it's only a matter of time before they do something like that. I feel like it's a little goofy. Like the fact that companion, I think companion is the most egregious. Like if they want to say like, oh, sometimes planeswalkers can be commanders, like if if they want to do stuff like that, it doesn't grind my gears that much. But like saying that, the ruling is that companion takes up a sideboard slot and we don't have sideboards in commander, and they're like, oh, well, it works because I said so, and I feel like that's what that would be like, Jason, if they're like at the beginning of the game, name a color, and then this commander is also that color. I feel like it's inevitable that something like that will happen, more so than just the Prismatic Piper or whatever that card's called. We probably will get something more like that, but I don't know. It seems silly.
It's just it is. It does seem silly, but so does Companion, a card that exists outside the game.
I mean, I'd be fine with it. It's definitely not the most egregious thing they'd have ever done in regards to breaking the established rules. So, yeah, I'd be fine with it.
All right. Well, I think that's basically going to do it for our conversation on 4-color commanders, unless you guys had any last minute thoughts. Yeah, so we actually do have a little bit of time at the end of the podcast. We can do something we haven't done in a while, which is talk about something cool outside of the world of Magic. Usually we're going over an hour, and that's not the goal. But right now we're under an hour, so we have a little bit of time to talk about something cool in our lives outside of the world of Magic. Jason, you hinted at your football stuff. Why don't you maybe spend a little bit of time elaborating and filling in the people on who aren't in on the know?
Well, for those of you who aren't sports fans, or maybe you are, but you're not football fans, Michigan won the national championship. At the time of this recording, they won it last night. And it's the first time that it's ever happened in my lifetime. Before that, the last time it happened was 1997. So it's been a while. It's been a while. And it was just really exciting to see, especially being a fan, like a lifelong fan, rooting for them my whole life. Everyone basically in my family rooting for them my whole life. So it was really cool to see. Only other cool thing is, the first week of January, I was in Miami for a couple days, and then I went on a cruise to the Bahamas for a couple days, and that was fun. That was a good time. Had a lot of fun out there on the boat, on the ship. Played a little bit of basketball on the ship. I played basketball in the middle of the ocean. Kind of crazy. Played 4 games, went 3-1. So your boy's athletic like that.
It's just so cool. Just gets cooler every episode, guys.
God, Morgan, we're so lame.
Yeah. Man, going to the Bahamas, that's got to be cool. Yeah, for me, I mean, this isn't outside the world of Magic directly, but I'm officially editing. Some of you guys know I work for Goldfish. Now I'm doing Commander Clash editing now. That's pretty cool. That's a big step in pushing me as an editor and trying new things. So as far as like, I know that's inside the world of Magic, but as somewhat outside of editing and learning as an editor, I'm having to learn some new things and try some new things. And it's been really cool. It's been a fun learning experience. I believe the first episode I will have edited for them is coming out 2 days after this video comes out. So check that out if you'd like. On that same day, we're having the episode of Upkeep come out where we're playing a bunch of Presence decks. So make sure you check that out if if you like our gameplay series. And outside of the world of Magic, man, I really am digging these snowstorms that we've been we've been getting here. I know that not everyone likes them, but man, I work at home and I have a big backyard that I can let my dog run around in. So, I get all of the upsides of the snow days with none of the downsides. And I know that's a very privileged position to have, but it's nice. It's nice. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about, Preston? Maybe a cool movie or a show you think people should check out, or a game, or
maybe Michigan. You could talk about Michigan.
Yeah, so the reasons why Michigan sucks are like they're
Can't
bad
say that.
players,
Can't say that.
coach isn't very good.
Can't say that. Didn't lose a game
All
all
of-
year. Didn't lose a
All
single
of their
game all
fans are
season.
annoying.
That may
dummies.
be true. That may be true. You might be right about that one, son.
No, I don't know. I haven't really had a whole lot going on outside of the world of Magic the past week or so. So
no reason to drag
Man.
this out. This is probably the shortest episode of the pod. I guess this is the shortest episode of the podcast since we got it going again. But we will hopefully go up the full hour starting next week, because we are bringing, since we're going weekly and not bi-weekly again, we will be bringing the news back, so you can get your Magic news from us. Talk about whatever the heck is going on, some cool stuff, and yeah, make sure you're subscribed. Again, if you'd like to support the show, you can check us out on Patreon. And if you're joining us on Patreon, you also get to join our Discord and hang out, talk Magic, talk previews. Sometimes we're setting up spell table games. And if not, you can just like, share, comment, all that good stuff for the YouTube algorithm, and check out some of our other videos. And yeah, make sure you subscribe, because we have a lot of other cool stuff coming down the pipeline very, very soon. We love you guys. We'll see you next time.